This is a day that will live in infamy. I'm Alan Seslowsky, sitting in for Jeff Erickson here with Chris Liss on the. I hope you appropriately saw that I played taps in the beginning to open us up.
Too much, not necessary. It's not a death in the family or something like that. Obviously, I'm bummed out that we lost our. Just so the two people on Earth who follow us and don't know what's going on. $6 million survivor pool. Dalton and I were down to the final 23. We had the Cardinals. They were 12.5-point favorites. Whatever. Who cares? The market is not right. The market is just on average right. It's not right in the individual instance. The Cardinals did not show up at all. We were in trouble from the beginning. We couldn't catch up. I was hopeful to that last field goal that made it 30-12. When it was 27-12, I'm like, it's team of destiny. We're going to get both touchdowns. I really thought we were. It was pretty disappointing, that game. But, my daughter's with me. She'd been sitting next to me on the couch the whole time. She was really bummed. I mean, she's really sad this morning. When can we do another one? Do they have it for baseball? Why do we have to wait a whole year? She was into it. And everyone on Twitter was like so nice about it and, saying how much they enjoyed it. And so I just kind of felt, bad about it, but not that bad. I mean, I feel bad. It was a lot of money. I didn't hedge at all, for those who are curious. Hedging is more difficult than you think because, when do I start hedging? Three weeks ago, I bet a couple thousand on the underdog, and then I win again, so I lose that money. Now I'm in the whole $3,000, then I double down. Now I'm the whole $10,000. Now I'm the whole $20,000. What if we lose on week 18? Maybe I'm in the whole $100,000, right? And that means I have to constantly make bigger and bigger hedges to cover the prior hedge losses. And it means I need liquidity in Vegas to get it quickly. I need logistics. I didn't want to sweat that and be stressing about, hey, Rufus, I know you said you have a guy. Can you put $100,000 down or $200,000? It's too, I didn't want to be navigating that while I'm, I put my 500 in like Dalton for a survivor contest. It's too bad that you couldn't take a little bit off the table, $100,000 out for everybody and we played for the rest. It's not possible per the rules. So I didn't hedge. I don't feel bad about that. As I said, it would have just been a logistical nightmare, and we lost. And that's kind of how it is.
So I think yes, losing the money, which again, it was a big amount of money. I think is one thing, and that is you, right? I mean, you always knew that it was a long shot against the field to win the $6 million. But what I think
always knew. I was drinking the Kool-Aid for a bit. I thought we were going to do it.
Yeah. Well, now I'm about to connect those dots. I think your belief in it actually persuaded people. And then, because we think that, I'm $6 million. It's like if I entered a DraftKings contest, I'm never going to win. But you actually persuaded people that this really wasn't just about skill, that it was about destiny. People actually bought into that religion. And that's awesome and scary at the same time.
I'm a cult leader. I was a cult. Yeah. I created a cult. People were like, what's my religion? It's my religion is Team of Destiny. You belong to the Team of Destiny sect? Yeah. Hey, it's better than some of this COVID stuff going around. Some of the religions that people are getting around that. Hey, I rather belong to Team of Destiny. Listen, I just believe this team's going to win the whole time. Yeah, right. I know what the odds are. I know what the probability. It doesn't matter. I'm with Team of Destiny.
Yeah, and I think that we all started to believe, and I think that's what happens. Like, you always hear about like iconic sports moments, like the 1980 U.S. hockey team, and do you believe in miracles? Like, I think that the collective bubbling of support started to build, and we all felt like it was part of us. And that's why I tongue-in-cheek played the rest in peace taps in the beginning. Yes, is it a little over the top? Yes, but because we all felt like a little piece of us died yesterday, and it's all, of course, it's nothing in the grand scheme of things, but we were all heavily invested. And I think, the fans collectively, I speak for the masses when I say thank you for bringing us along the way. Your Week 15 observation article where you show gratitude for everyone that supported you is linked in the video description. So if you want to check that out, which
that wasn't everyone. That was like a third of what we got. That's
what I'm saying. It was a sampling.
Yeah, it was like the thing is, like, it was really hilarious. Like, people were they were into it, and that was really fun. But like, I should be more bummed, but I'm not that bummed. Like, I don't want to be one of those guys that's like, oh, there's a lesson in this, or, it's the journey that matters. Like, fuck that, man. The journey that matters. No, hell no. I wanted the money, and yeah, we got a story out of it, but I'd rather have the story about how we won it. That would be a better story than how we were in the last 23. And so, that's all bullshit. Like, there's no like, oh, well, losing is just, no, it sucked. I mean, but for some reason I don't feel that bad about it. Like, and I feel like, I feel like, you know what, like Sasha was there rooting with me. Oscar's on the couch, sleeping next to me. We're watching this game, everything, obviously I have other issues with like the totalitarian state bearing down on us with these insane rules and locking you down, all this stuff. But okay, that's a separate thing. But in my personal life, my professional life, everything's good. Like I have friends and family and colleagues and I like, so I was sort of like, it was hard for me to get so mad. I was like more mad like in the second quarter when they made a bad play, right? Then when it like hit me that we were done. And, my motto is only sweat the small stuff. The big stuff don't worry about. I'll get enraged at like the most slight, punt in a bad situation. But like, the fact that we got knocked out, I'm like, it sucked. It's horrible. And it always happens with a knife in your back when you don't expect it. Like the 12.5-point favorite. We're like, okay, we got to agonize over this Christmas game. And the Cardinals, we never believed in them. I don't know how they kept winning. We never liked them. Kyler Murray for MVP, that's laughable now. It was just they didn't even show up. I mean, Murray was compromised. He couldn't move. I don't know why. I thought his ankle was better, but like he must have hurt it like in practice week or something. It was very weird, the whole thing.
Even though a wide receiver doesn't move the point spread, no DeAndre Hopkins in a game like this does make a difference. Now, again, it may not made the difference to winning and losing, but someone like that you could just throw the ball to might have made somewhat of a difference. But, I mean, listen, Craig Reynolds ran over them. I mean, but here, I want to back up a little bit because this is what I think that people that were invested in the story, and then we'll get into, all our Week 15 takeaways. But I was trying to imagine how you were feeling each step of the way. Like, you've talked about this before. In the first quarter, it's kind of like, okay, we can overcome this. This is no big deal. It's not a good start. But what was the point where you were like, this is a real problem?
Well, they scored. They were going in for a field goal at the end of the half to go up 13-0, and they ended up getting a touchdown to go up 17-0. I wasn't like, oh, I'm screwed. I was like, that's not good. That touchdown was really bad. But then Arizona, they had a couple of field goals, and it was like 23-6 or something like that, or 27-6. I think it's 24-6 at one point, and it was kind of weird to kick the field goal because it was like, okay, now you're down 18, but okay, there's time. It was really the only time I really gave up, which was like 5 minutes left, and they kicked the field goal to go up 30-12, and then it was over. It was 27-12, and so they would have to get a touchdown. They had 3 timeouts. Kick deep, call the 3 timeouts, score again. The problem was they just never really could stop them. I mean, at no point was any of the things that I thought would have had to happen likely to happen because they were getting their ass kicked, even though they were the better. Usually, like, the better team's a little flat. The bad team jumps on them. They get a lead. And then over the course of the game, the better team, starts to show why it's better. And then either the better team wins or there's one play the bad team makes and upsets them. But in this case, it never got to that point where it was like a tie game and there was one play. They never even proved that they were the better team. That it was there was no, like, you cannot hang your hat on one thing. Like, oh, if they had just caught this pass or Christian Kirk had some drops, but none of that really was the story. They just were outplayed completely.
Yeah. The team of destiny, unfortunately, has come to a halt, but we all enjoyed that journey.
It's still the team of destiny. It's just its destiny was losing in week 15. You see, when I said destiny, I meant win the whole thing, in my mind. But, reality always has the last word. Like the destiny was you're going to have this run and then you're going to lose in week 15. And I say one last thing. We were really good all year about like not just taking the biggest favorite. We would take a substantially smaller favorite if we had a bad vibe. And we had a bad vibe, but we were overly reliant on the heuristic of, they lost, they're going to bounce back. Okay, that was one thing. And 2, they were 12.5-point favorites, 13 when we locked it in. And our next biggest favorite was the Vikings at 6 on the road in Chicago. We didn't even like. So I think we should have thought, we were just kind of course it's Arizona. But even if we had like really meditated on it, I think it would have been hard for us to get off of them this week. We would have had to take the Niners, that was our next biggest favorite. It was the Niners. But then we had the Niners teed up for the Christmas Day game. We don't really like Arizona do you like Arizona better in Detroit, or do you like them hosting Indy next week, right? Of course, it's going to be in Detroit. So we really didn't – we would have had to really step our game up to have kind of done it that way.
Yeah, I mean, Survivor, when you get into the later weeks, especially in a contest like this, is navigating a minefield. And you guys made it all the way almost to the end. And then, unfortunately, you stepped on it. But I just want to let everybody know that the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast is sponsored by WinBet. If there's one thing that we appreciate here at RotoWire, it's making good decisions, like Liss and Dalton did in Survivor up until week 15. And even more so, it's making the right decision. Listen up. We have an incredible offer for you at RotoWire's newest partner, WinBet. Actually, they're not new anymore. We've had them all season, right? But our season-long partner, WinBet. The premier digital casino and sportsbook app, WinBet is now the exclusive sponsor for RotoWire's fantasy podcasts. WinBet brings you all the latest action, user-friendly interface, moneyline bets, boosted parlays, over-unders, round robins, live betting, and so much more at your fingertips. Want to break from sports betting? Head into the WinBet's digital casino, take a spin at roulette, double down blackjack, and slam the slots. Try your hand at Baccarat. WinBet is currently available in 6 states when rapidly expanding. WinBet possibilities are limitless. WinBet is currently offering RotoWire listeners a risk-free bet up to $500 on your first wager. Download WinBet now. That's WYNNBET, WinBet, the exclusive partner of RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcasts. All right, Chris. I'm sure you're going to talk about this extensively on the SiriusXM show, which I'm going to be tuned in and listening to it. But I think it really wraps up is that, we were there with you. We appreciate. And when I was with you in Vegas, when you were talking about how you thought this would be good content, and I was like, what is he talking about? Good content. This was better than anyone ever could have imagined. And I know that doesn't make the pain any less, but again, I think your vision for it worked, and it was awesome. And so thank you on behalf of everybody.
Yeah, it was actually Pete who was like, just go get it. It'll be good content. And I didn't want to deal with it because it was morning and I had to get a flight. But I dragged my ass down there. And he was right. It was good content. It was well worth the $500. And yeah, it is what it is.
Will you do it again next year?
I'm not even that pissed. Yeah, probably. I will do it again next year. Yeah, why not? I mean, it's just so daunting to get through every single week that you have to get there. And we'll probably lose like week 3 or something next year, and it'll just be like, oh, that was the team of not destiny. But whatever, yeah, sure, we'll do it next year. Why not?
All right, we can't wait. Let's talk about a little bit of week 15 stuff, some takeaways, some observations. I read your observation article this morning, but I want to rewind a little bit because sometimes on the podcast, when you think about the Thursday game, when you guys do your podcast, you and Jeff on Monday, Thursday seems like 100 years ago, but this is the fantasy playoffs. And I don't know, were you in any, it started off with a bang. I mean, all the key Chiefs went nuts. I mean, Patrick Mahomes had his 400 yards and 3 touchdowns, an epic performance by Kelsey and by Tyreek Hill. Did you go against, or did you have any of those guys to start off the week?
I haven't checked yet. I haven't checked like specifically. I just looked at some of the scores. I know I'm going to win 1 or 2. I'm probably going to lose 1 or 2. The one I cared most about was the NFC Primetime, and I'm almost drawing dead. I mean, I had Mike Evans and Gronk. I had Ramondre Stevenson. I had Michael Pittman. I had a lot of bad ones, and I didn't have any Kelsey or whatever in there. Most people who had Kelsey are not in the playoffs, though, Alan. So it doesn't really matter. And same with Mahomes. Hill definitely is on some playoff teams. And it was a crazy game. I have Herbert in that league, and he did okay. Could have been so much bigger, but he did okay.
CEH also, he did not have another good game. I'm just curious. Again, he has been like okay at best. Where do you see him getting drafted next year in the NFFC and the high stakes drafts?
It really depends, like what KC does, in the offseason. Like if they just go back with the 2 guys they have now, he'll go in like the 5th round. He'll be like the Mike Davis. Yeah, I think. 4th or 5th. I'd have to lay it out, like see all the receivers and who I would draft where, but it's hard to see pushing him up. They just don't. They use Darrell Williams on 3rd down, and if CEH isn't the designated pass catcher, then how valuable could he possibly be?
Yeah, it's funny. I made notes here too, and I said, where would you put him next year? And I wrote in the Mike Davis, Gaskin going in the dead zone. Yeah,
that's right. It's like. He could. There's always that possibility. But so Mike Davis could have been great. Who knew? I never drafted him, but it was possible that he, just got a ton of volume and was good. But it's kind of like there's no reason to believe that he will, and he's not. He's in his 3rd year now. It's not, running backs. It's like they usually pop right away.
Yeah, on the other side of that, we'll just talk about this game quickly, is on the Chargers side. I mean, Herbert is going to be one of the top 3 fantasy quarterbacks, I think, for the next few years. But then Keenan Allen, I think, is going to be a value next year. He just continues to do it each and every week. I mean, is he somebody that you could see staying in the 3rd round next year? One of these like boring receivers. I mean, he's unbelievable. It's 29 years old, but he's like a PPR machine.
Yeah, but just be a little wary of the Hopkins path where, I mean, Keenan Allen was hurt earlier in his career. Hopkins wasn't, but they start to get older. They start to get hurt more. He's kind of at that age. So, yeah, I mean, Adam, people took – it was like I remember Pianowski was all over like Adam Thielen and he was over Lockett. Lockett's been great. But like some of these guys, some of these boring veterans just produce, and then some of these boring veterans start to get hurt all the time. And that's sort of that's the bargain you're making with those guys.
Yeah, let's move over to the Saturday game, the Patriots and the Colts. I mean, you talked about Jonathan Taylor for MVP possibility and, Cooper Kupp on those 2 long shots a while ago. He's making the case right now. What did you think about his performance again? I mean, two of your, let's call it signature observations came true. It's the Jonathan Taylor MVP conversation, and also is when you stack the box against an elite running back.
Yeah, that one where he broke through, that was great because that game was terrible for me. I had Taylor, he did nothing. I had Ramondre Stevenson, he got stuffed. I had Nick Folk. They got that field goal that was a kind of a shaky field goal decision. Got that. So it wasn't the total disaster that it might have been. I had Pittman in 2 places, really bad. But then Taylor broke free and got the touchdown, and he just always gets his. And he easily could have slid down. He could have run out of gas or slid down because they could have run out the clock anyway. It wasn't necessarily he didn't need to score, but he did. That was great. So he got his 170 yards and a touchdown. And I think he's got a shot for MVP because the Pats just lost. The Titans just lost too. They're 9-5. Now they've got the tiebreaker over the Colts, but the Titans are in free fall. And the Niners could beat the Titans this week, and they're favored. And if the Colts can go into Arizona, who's looking kind of soft, and win that game, go 9-6, and the Titans are 9-6, the Colts win that division. I think if the Colts win the division, which is still a long shot, but they can do it. And look, New England is 9-5, right? And so they play Miami still. I mean, the Colts, it would be insane if they got the 1 seed, but it's not out of the realm. It's only the Chiefs really that because the Chargers just did so many stupid decisions, but it's only the Chiefs that look like the team that the Colts couldn't catch right now.
Yeah, it's funny because about a month ago, we were all talking about how, the Chiefs are even going to make the playoffs. But there was always there was a good value in some of the sports books about them winning the division and winning the AFC East. I mean, obviously the Patriots are tough. They're gonna be there to the end, but it's still Patrick Mahomes. And that's why I always think that Patrick Mahomes is the 1-1 in a lot of Superflex drafts, even moving forward, because this is what a down year looks like for him, like QB7. I mean, this is like as bad as it gets, right? And then he still has that upside to go 403 on you in any given week. So I think that's pretty cool right there. So with the Colts, though, they're now the 5 seed. They seem like the team that like nobody wants to play. I mean, the Ravens with their loss yesterday go from the 2 seed to out of the playoffs. I think, we all think that we know what's going to happen here, but there's going to be a lot of more upsets and shuffles around. I mean, do you also agree with that the Colts are the team right now that is going to be the lower seed, the lower rated seed, like the 5 or 6 that nobody wants to play?
Yeah, I think just, a team that can run the ball like that in January and then, play decent defense is going to be kind of scary. Wentz is just such a bonehead, though. I just can't take it. He just it's just like, he's like Baker Mayfield. Like he tries to do stuff. It's like, dude, you're not that good. Just caretake. If you could just be peak Alex Smith, Colts might win the Super Bowl, but you're going to make a boneheaded pick. That's not necessary. It's just not necessary. Just hand it off, play defense, make a play when you absolutely have to, but don't force it. And I think Wentz is like, he's tough. Hey, he's good at quarterback sneaking. I'll give him that. But he's a weak link in that team. And it's better than Rivers because he's got a little bit of mobility, but otherwise it's basically like Rivers with a little mobility. So yeah, it's them, it's the Patriots still, and it's the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs are probably the favorite now. But I'd still take Chiefs Pats. And because the Colts are probably going to come in as a wild card. But if they do catch the Titans, if the Titans collapse, which they still can, then, the Colts, if they have a little home field, I think they don't need home field, but it's just The problem is there's only one bye, which I think is kind of dumb. It really gives one team such a huge edge over everybody else, and that's going to be huge. Who has it?
I've heard you guys critique, and rightfully so, about the new playoff format, and the extra game of the season throws off the records and all that kind of stuff. But the only time I do appreciate the extra game is when we actually have an extra game on Wild Card Weekend. Now I'm like, oh, okay, this is cool. We have an extra game, so that's that one time, one day I actually enjoy it. Right. Let's move into the 1 o'clock, because I read your observations on the 1 o'clock games, the Giants and Dallas. Now, obviously a meaningless game in the sense of, maybe Dallas can they did secure some more playoff positioning, seating position. But I thought there were some interesting observations to be made with the Giants. First of all, did you see Barkley's sick one-handed catch?
I did see it. Yeah, he did make a great catch. I forgot to mention that. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, because I didn't see it right. So I was like, maybe you watched just the maybe you.
I was mostly on the Lions Cardinals, but yes, I did see that though.
To me, that was, it's not as spectacular as Odell's catch in the end zone because it was on national TV, but that was one of the better catches I've seen. And for those that didn't see it, it was like a swing pass, and he like backhanded it, and it just like almost looked like he had a suction cup on his hand. Right. And so
wearing a catcher's glove, and they were throwing him a baseball or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's a great. So with Barkley just disappointing, I know you mentioned in your observations that he could still be having some lingering effects on the ankle, but where do you realistically see his ADP for next year? Let's say that let's give him best case scenario.
Where do I think he should go, or where do you think he will go?
Will go, because we know where you think he should go. 1-1. But I'm even going to give you a made up scenario. What if they get Russell Wilson? If they actually pull it off?
Okay, if they get Russell Wilson and they draft, they won't draft anybody.
They won't have any picks.
Right. If they get Russell Wilson. Man, the offensive line is so bad, but maybe it's partly bad because the quarterback's bad. It's hard to know, chicken and egg. If they get Russell Wilson, I think Barkley will go 210, 211, something like that.
End of the second round. Okay.
Yeah, I think so. Well, but it also depends. Like, okay, you know what? But okay, there's no injury from here on out. The offseason's smooth. He's completely 100% healthy. They have Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
Maybe
rosy scenario.
Yeah, maybe he goes like 2-2, 112. It's going to be let's just go through it. You're going to have Taylor is obviously going to go. Mm-hmm. Eckler's been so banged up, it'll be another year. I don't want him in the top 5, but if he finishes the way he started, then I think he will. I think guys like Javonte Williams, but depending on what Melvin Gordon's doing. Who else am I even thinking? Dalvin Cook will probably still.
Alvin and Dalvin.
Yeah, Alvin and Dalvin. McCaffrey, nobody knows what we're going to get. It's been a couple of years totally lost. And then you got
Naji Harris.
Naji Harris, but look at the game he just had. It's just there's nothing there. They'll have a new quarterback. It's going to be very weird. I think he'll go I think Naji Harris will go 7th, 8th, 9th.
Zeke
is going to be tough.
Yeah, Zeke's going to be tough. But how about this?
Henry,
a healthy Henry's up there. And then if Leonard Fournette comes back to the same situation, he's RB3 on the year right now. I know we don't want to rate him there, but he's a candidate to go on the 1-2 turn next year.
I think if everybody's healthy in the offseason, it's going Taylor 1. And then 2 is probably going to be a bunch of receivers. It's going to be Devontae Adams, if he's still with Rodgers somewhere, but he's getting older too. I wouldn't take him at 2.
I would take Cooper Kupp or Justin Jefferson at 2 if you're talking about receivers.
Jefferson, okay, so Jefferson, right? Jefferson can't fail if he's healthy. Now I jinxed a couple people.
Oh Jesus, famous.
But first, you're gonna have Taylor, you're gonna have Jefferson. Probably someone will take Adams for one more year. There'll be Kupp. But Kupp. This is so clearly his career year. I don't know. I feel like he's really good. But I think Kupp will go 1-9, 110. I kind of feel like Henry. I just think Henry's a tough sell. Having an injury after that, but it's not it's going to be a career ender, and he's going to be healthy next year. And it wasn't like he was slowing down much. So I don't know. It's going to be a very interesting top of the first round next year. And so where you're going to take Barkley is going to depend on all of that stuff. But with Russell Wilson, maybe early second.
Yeah, and the other thing is that it's hard to envision this now as I'm saying it, but I think it is a possibility that some softwares will give Deebo Samuel dual position eligibility. And if that does happen, he's worth a discussion in the first round. It may not happen, but he's certainly worth
discussion. And what if Elijah Mitchell comes back the last 2 games and in the playoffs and looks like, one of the best running backs in the league? He'll be there. although he gets hurt so much.
And there'll undoubtedly be a rookie that makes it up to the top two. Some, we don't know who they are yet, and I haven't done my deep dive yet, as we're going to do in this offseason, but there'll be some rookie that lands in an optimal spot. Maybe not a first-round rookie, but even if they're taken in the late second round and they have the backfield to themselves, people will be talking about that player as a late first-round pick, just like they were with Naji Harris. So we don't even know what we don't know yet.
Yeah. If Giants get Russell Wilson, that'll be a fun season.
They have pick 5 and 6, and you and I have talked about this off air. I heard you talk about it on your SiriusXM show. This is this has to happen. Pick 5 and pick 6, plus Daniel Jones, who's got another year left on his contract, for Russell Wilson. It makes sense on both sides.
Right, because the Seahawks get 2 picks and a bad year, right? So they get the players. They're going to be rookies. Then they also have probably a bad year with Daniel Jones, and they get another high pick next year. And then already in 2023, maybe they're ready to compete because they've just gotten 3 top 10 picks, presumably, after getting rid of Wilson and playing in that division. And then all of a sudden, they're reloaded if they make good picks.
Yeah, and I think that Daniel Jones actually is a nice compliment for the receivers there. If DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett are both there and healthy, Daniel Jones's game at least lines up with throwing to DK Metcalf.
I think they should toss in Lockett. I don't know what he's getting paid, but the Giants don't need more receivers, but they probably okay, and we toss in Lockett and you give us Tony or you give us one of the young guys because Russell would probably want Lockett and then, give them the young guy who's under the rookie contract. I mean, if I'm the Giants, I don't love that, but it's better for 1 year. And Tony looked really good on the rare occasion he was healthy.
Yeah, and Russell Wilson's teams that he said that he would be willing to be traded to did include the Giants. Unfortunately, it did not include the Jets because they're going to have two solid picks too.
Yeah, Jets and Giants, the two early drafting teams. I love the pick 6 the Jets got to almost take down the Dolphins. They still couldn't do it, but it was hilarious. It was oh, wow, this actually happened.
Yeah, that had to tie it in with your team of destiny thing. I mean, I thought there was a really funny tweet, and then I just want to actually, hold that thought. I want to go back to the team of destiny, but I just want to tell you really quick that the NFL season is heating up for the playoffs, and Yahoo is going big on daily fantasy football. There is a ton of big prize contests throughout the year on Yahoo, including a multi-entry contest now is shark free. To celebrate, Yahoo is going big on DFS as well as Yahoo Daily Fantasy becoming shark free. Yahoo is giving all users an opportunity to claim free $10 on the site. Take advantage of this free $10 site credit offer in any paid contest, including Yahoo's biggest contest, the weekly $1 million DFS NFL Baller Contest. The weekly $1 million contest features $1 million in total prizes. First place getting $100K. Play daily fantasy football on Yahoo this season. Visit sports.yahoo.com/dailyfantasy/welcome to claim your free $10 offer to get started. And by the way, based on the reads that you and Jeff have been doing on the show, I did check out Yahoo a couple weeks ago. It is really an underrated interface. It's really good because I get lost in the DFS circles of DraftKings sometimes. This is a nice breath of fresh air. So if you are a DFS player or you've been eliminated from the playoffs, definitely check out Yahoo DFS. It's really cool. All right, the Dolphins game. You actually became a Jet fan for a few hours, which I liked. And I like that there was a smart tweet. I'll let you explain it about when things didn't look good for you on your game with Arizona, that you actually were rooting for the Jets because if everybody lost. Go ahead. Explain that whole thing.
Yeah, unfortunately, the Niners made that move, so they would have still won. Yeah. But there
was
one point where the Dolphins were, in a little trouble or easily could have lost. And so we lose, but 13 people or something, or 16 people on the Dolphins, they would all lost. And then we still would have need Jacksonville, who did lose also, Minnesota, Tampa Bay did lose, and the Niners to lose because those are all the teams that were used. And, of course, the Dolphins held on and the Niners won. But there was a point that if the Dolphins had lost, at least as of the early games, Jacksonville, Dolphins, and Cardinals would all lost, and there was still sort of get back in. I knew that was probably not going to happen, but it was I retweeted it because I thought it was funny, okay, Team of Destiny comes back, after, even if when they lose, they don't get knocked out. It was so funny too because I made some tweets this week saying Jacksonville should be favored by 7. This is a law of physics. This is not. I'm not talking about narrative street here. We're talking about a law of physics. All the pent up rage and frustration with Meyer, it's going to get unleashed like a spring that's uncoiled. It's a physical force, and they came out and got not blown out, but beaten pretty soundly by the Texans. And my conclusion is, Maybe they didn't hate Urban Meyer as much as the media led us to believe. I mean, if they really hated him, they would have just played their ass off to show what a terrible coach he is. But now after this game, you're like, maybe it wasn't Urban Meyer. Maybe these guys are just not that good. Maybe this is not a good team. And it just really surprised me. I thought they were going to smoke Houston, and they just did not.
Yeah, I made a few notes on this game too, and you mentioned this in your Week 15 observations article, which anyone can click the link, and I urge you to read it every week. It's in the video description. You said I could tell it was a joke, but you said who's going to have a better career, Davis Mills or Trevor Lawrence? But let's keep in mind when those two guys came out of high school and into college, Davis Mills was the higher rated quarterback. It's only through their college careers that narrative flipped, and for good reason. But Davis Mills, I mean, this is exactly, Dak Prescott was found in the later rounds. Can Davis Mills at least be serviceable while Houston uses a first-round pick on a position player this year?
They could. I mean, look, Minshew's serviceable. Case Keenum's serviceable. Taylor Heineke's serviceable. I mean, all these guys are decent quarterbacks. That's why it's so dumb when you give the extension to the Andy Daltons of the world or the Joe Flaccos of the world. People are like, oh, quarterback's the most important position. Don't ever draft a running back early. You must draft a quarterback. It's like, no, there's only like a very small subset of quarterbacks that matter. It obviously matters if you have a terrible quarterback, if you have Mike Glennon out there, you can't win. But, it shouldn't take you very long to establish a guy who's, the Case Keenum made a Pro Bowl one year, Taylor Heineke, Gardner Minshew level. That shouldn't be too hard to find. And Mills could be that. And, as long as you can give the guy, 5 games to prove it. Now, if you're a contending team, you don't want to, risk 5 games on a guy who's trying to prove that he's just a serviceable NFL quarterback. So that's a problem. But if you're a team that's already lost, immediately stop starting Mike Glennon, immediately stop starting Tyrod Taylor. And Tyrod Taylor, by the way, is serviceable. And just find if you have a guy, find out if you have a guy. It doesn't, quarterback, it's easier to play than ever these days. It's the easiest time it's ever been to play quarterback. You don't get destroyed. They can't grab your receivers. If you have a decent system and, you're attentive and you can make good decisions, and you have, you don't even have a great arm, just make good decisions, have a good enough accuracy and arm, you can survive. And so I think, it's a whole other thing to become an elite quarterback, but I think the idea of like, oh no, what are we going to do without this quarterback? I don't think quarterback is that hard to find just to get a guy who's okay.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see what Jacksonville does next year with the head coaching position, because there's a couple ways they can go here, because it's really important, more important than ever, to find out if Trevor Lawrence, like what the situation is, because not only was he just like a rookie quarterback, have the normal rookie quarterback jitters, like he looks bad. And
terrible.
And again, based on what we were presented, that this is an Andrew Luck level floor prospect. Like no one ever said that you just got to wonder what happened. So they can go one of two ways. They can bring in the offensive minded Brian Dable. Everyone likes him as the offensive type of coach. Or you can bring in, stabilize the franchise, Ron Rivera, CEO coach. Which way do you think they should go? And which way do you think they will go?
I like the CEOs. I think the coach, you can bring in a coordinator that can be creative, but I think the CEOs, and you can even like get one from the college ranks or gamble a bit on that. And it does matter, obviously. But I think the CEO coaches, the pro coaches that actually like have respect, the people play for them. I think that's like the sine qua non of like having a development of players. I think that's just like the baseline. And when you get in these spreadsheet jockeys, it can work because some of them end up being good coaches, right? But like, I think you're really taking a chance. You want Brian Flores, you want Mike Vrabel, you want, Ron Rivera, Mike Tomlin. People mock their down and distance stuff, and fine. Sometimes they do some weird stuff math wise, but I just think you get a CEO in there, and then, then you can kind of mess around. I think you gotta get the foundation piece first, and then the next layer on top of that is, the strategy piece.
Yeah, I think you hit it right there, because look what the Lions are doing. I mean, we can all goof on Dan Campbell, but that's exactly what that franchise needed for this season.
Yeah, and you can get the, and I also think it's in some ways the CEO type is kind of rarer than the spreadsheet type. I mean, there's two different skills. One is strategy, and the other one is running a business. And so I think it's rare because you're first of all, you're in the public eye, right? So it's not like you're just quietly behind closed doors running a business. You're totally being scrutinized and judged and criticized and mocked all the time. Okay. Secondly, these are rich guys. They're young and rich. So they're like hard to deal with because they're punks, because everybody who's in their 20s is a punk. I mean, who's got any yeah, I was a huge punk, but I'm saying like anyone who has any personality, has any sort of, and these are players, these guys are performed already in college on the biggest public stage. These guys are, they're also rich. So they don't really, and they're used to getting their way. So it's not easy, that job, to be a head coach. And then the sort of wonky strategy stuff is, I think there's way more people can do that job than the head coach job.
Yeah. Did you see in the Jaguars game the fan that ran on the field? I thought that was one of the best fan on the field. Did you see it?
I didn't see it. Was
he
clothed?
Clothed. I mean, he looked like you don't want to see this guy in clothes, but it wasn't the typical, like you said, like the naked runner that runs across midfield. This was on the goal line. They handed off to James Robinson, and right before they snapped the ball, a guy comes in the end zone and starts waving his hands like he's open for the pass. I thought Trevor Lawrence was going to throw him the pass. Check it out. I'll send you the link. I'll do the work for you there, but it is one of the best fan on the fields. And
Real man sneaks up and lets the play go and times it and clocks the open receiver and breaks up the pass. I would have so much respect if a guy literally came in and did like a perfectly timed hit, but it was like a devastating hit, and like the dude like totally got sprawled out, and then but he didn't have a helmet on, or maybe he put on a helmet. He came out, put on a helmet.
Oh yeah,
a helmet to helmet.
Like that thin plastic helmet that we all had when we were kids. But it was great about it, though, is that, like normally the announcers like don't acknowledge it. They go, oh, this is a disgusting display. Like they put the camera on this guy. Right. The announcers were like, and then you saw security just like take this guy out. But he was wide open in the end zone. I thought that was a good one. And the other thing that I always like too is, and I saw this a couple times, and is when the cameraman wearing like the yellow vest always gets like crushed on the out of bounds play. That's always like one of my favorite plays in football as well. A couple of those happen to say, okay, moving on to the next game that I took some notes on. Did you keep an eye on Carolina and Buffalo at all? Were you watching that game a little bit?
Just a tiny bit. I had Gabriel Davis, who just got, not only they cover the spread, super confidence, but he got me a second touchdown. I was like, that was cool. I didn't see like the circumstances though.
Yeah, but this game started off with another, again, I try to pick out points that are these eternal Chris Liss theories, and the kicker was ruled out for the game when he pulled something in warmups. So they didn't have Zane Gonzalez was ruled out in warmups. Right. So, everyone's like, oh, they're going to go for two. And, but why can't, this is a Chris Lissism right here. Why can't the punter kick 30-yard field goals?
Right. Like every punter as like a baseline competency. Every quarterback should be able to kick a 35-yard punt. Every punter should be able to kick a 35-yard field goal. Every kicker should be able to do a 35-yard punt. Like, is there no reason why you can't just try? You don't have to be a professional level punter. You just like, okay, so we lose 5 yards per punt. Okay, like that's unfortunate, and over time that's a negative. But for one game, it's not going to cost you much. No big deal. Why would you ever be unprepared? It's like everybody, there should be 5 people who could I like long snapping so hard. You can't have a few backup long snappers. How about holding? Holding is so hard. I mean, everything should just be a tiny drop off, but no, Shohei Ohtani, we can't dare let him pitch and hit. He'll never survive. We hear this and then they do it. And then it's like, oh, he's the greatest player of all time, and like, it's the same thing. It's like, why, Danny White used to be quarterback and he was the full-time punter and he saved them a roster spot. I mean, come on.
Well, here, the other thing is also is that no one has more time in practice than the kicker.
Of course.
Punt. Right. So, and the punter, especially the punter, right? The punter is just sitting there punting. I mean, what else do you have to do? You go to the gym with the guys, you hang out on the side, you can practice. You have enough downtime to kick 30-yard field goals.
The kicker and punter should be betting big money against each other for who, relatively speaking, they have someone should get up a relative scale of what, how good of a punt and how long of a field goal, and bet every week in practice who can do better at each other's job. To the point where either one could do either's job, just they should get a bonus for, being proficient at that.
Another player in that game that you always liked, but, the market was never too high on him is Devin Singletary. I think he rushed the ball 22 times. They made Zach Moss healthy scratch. Devin Singletary looked good on the touchdown run. Do you think that this is a player for managers that are still in the fantasy playoffs, that this could be a league winner type player that you weren't counting on?
I don't think so because Josh Allen gets so many carries, but they seem to trust Singletary. It's funny. I have a bet in PPR against Dalton Singletary versus Damian Harris, and I thought I was completely drawing dead on that. But after last week where Harris was scratched, I'm probably still drawing dead. But, Singletary gets some catches, and so we'll see. I'll probably still lose, but I just think it's hilarious that might have been resurrected. If Damian Harris missed a couple more games, Singletary has a couple good games. No, I think he's a very sketchy player because of the usage.
But when they're making Zach Moss a healthy scratch, and now we're getting into the running months here. So, I mean, you just think they're going to, like you said, Josh Allen will get the goal line, and then Breida and Devin Singletary will alternate unpredictable, unprojectable games. That sounds reasonable to me.
I mean, if you were like, if you've had horrible injuries and you're stuck, you could get lucky, but I wouldn't. Yeah, I think it's a long shot that he's consistent.
The Tennessee-Pittsburgh game, okay. Did you Julio Jones? I mean, he is basically the Tennessee game. Julio Jones is basically now exactly mirroring the Andre Johnson career path. I mean, this is almost eerie with the low touchdown totals versus expected touchdowns. The going to another team. Julio Jones, you're not even putting him on your top 150 next year, right?
Probably not. We'll see what the situation. I mean, I thought AJ Green. I'm surprised AJ Green's still in the league. And I'm like, wow, he's actually, I wouldn't say he's doing well, but he's actually producing a little bit. So it could be a situation like that. But I think AJ Green. The thing about Julio though is Julio's been like AJ Green just got inefficient, but Julio actually last year was incredibly efficient before he got hurt, and then this year I want to take a look. Oh, we're missing our 2021 stats here. I don't know why we're missing that. This year,
are you trying to look at what his totals are?
Yeah, his per target. Let me look at his yards per target. I'm trying to find that in real time here.
While you're looking, I was going to say while you're looking for that though, that there was a crazy measurement at the end of that game. I'm not sure if you saw it, where they actually challenged the spot, and they did one of those things where, do you remember years ago, I forget which referee was, busted out the credit card and put the credit card between the ball. So It was the spot when you saw it in real time didn't look like it was even close, but they gave him a generous spot. It was an interesting, Pittsburgh, like I said, is not dead yet. And which leads me to think that one of the biggest problems, I mean, the obvious problem is that Ben Roethlisberger is, way past his effective prime. And a good quarterback is likely to be on this team next year. Any idea? Because I think it's an appealing situation to someone like Rodgers and whoever the quarterback is. Let's say you go down a tier or two, right? There's going to be a couple mid-range free agents. It's just an appealing spot with a good coach and good weapons.
Yeah, there's good weapons with Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool and Freiermuth. That's pretty good setup. And then Naji Harris. So the offensive line is a real problem. And if it's like Russell Wilson, they have to trade a lot to get, so they can't really improve the offensive
they're not going to
line.
be able to afford him. But let's say, would you give a first, what you saw from Tyler Huntley yesterday, would you give a late first round pick to get a mobile quarterback like that's on $1 million contract?
He did a pretty good Lamar Jackson impression. I was like, this guy's just as good. He looked just as good. I don't think we've seen enough of him yet to give a first for him, but then again, a late first is whatever. I mean,
that's what I'm saying. I mean, they paid a second for Darnold. Carolina did. I mean,
they paid a 2, 4, and 6. They paid a 2, 4, and 6 for Darnold.
Right.
The Jets
and he did nothing.
Getting a W. Oh, the Jets got a huge W on that, salvaging that wreckage for some picks. Yeah, I could see it. I mean, Tyler Huntley looked pretty good, but I think Baltimore's smart and they put their guys in position to win and succeed. And I'm not sure he would be able to take that with him away from Baltimore. And the offense is run for a mobile quarterback. I mean, they'd probably try to squeeze him into the wrong situation. But sure, he can play. I mean, he has that, he has that sense. When he runs, he's not just it's not just athleticism. He has some vision. He knows what he has, a good idea. He seems like he's thinking on the move, and that was something that looked good. But by the way, Jones had I don't know the exact number. I don't have. Yeah, Julio has almost 10 yards per target this year. So he has been efficient his last 2 years. He's just been hurt. So unlike Andre Johnson, who cratered on a per target basis before he just fell off the map completely, Julio's still good. He just can't stay healthy. And so it could be like Chipper Jones in baseball. He was bad for 2 years. I mean, he just wasn't healthy. And then he played 1 year and he led the league in OPS because he was always good. He just could never stay on the field. And so Julio's an interesting one. I think that, so I think there's a chance that he has that one last healthy year or like plays 11 games and is good still. Antonio Brown is similar. Antonio Brown's really good. Well, he just got suspended for the fake vax card, but he's was
back now. He's back next week.
Well, no, I know. I picked him up in one of my playoff leagues. It was probably too little too late. But, then he had an ankle problem. He's been hurt a lot this year too. So he's getting old too. A lot of these guys are still good. Their bodies can't hold up.
And we're going to come back and we'll tease this real quick. We'll just do our last sponsor read. But Antonio Brown coming back is timed interestingly. I don't know if you saw the Chris Godwin note, but he's out for the rest of the regular season.
Right? Oh, yeah. Antonio Brown's like a top 5 receiver. I picked him up right before the playoffs. Now, unfortunately, I think that team's also probably drawing dead unless like Jalen Hurts goes bananas Tuesday night. But that would have been a real key pickup for the playoffs.
Yeah. Chris, Thrive Fantasy is back for another season of fantasy football. They're running a huge guaranteed contest every week in the NFL season. With Thrive Fantasy, you can eliminate the countless hours of research and focus on only the top tier athletes who have the biggest impact on the game. Sign up today and get 6 free months of RotoWire subscription, the best part of that whole deal. Here's how you can claim your free RotoWire subscription. Visit rotowire.com/thrive, deposit a minimum of $10 and receive $100 deposit bonus up to $100. Play in your first paid contest and receive 6 free months of RotoWire. What a deal. I like it. You can read all of our premium content there. All right. So now back to that game last night, the Tampa Bay game versus New Orleans. First of all, in a week where, certain things, Survivor contest didn't break your way, your best bet long shot on our Beat the Bookie video was the New Orleans at plus 400. Your friend over here took your advice. So first small peanut.
I won $20 off of Dalton. He wanted to use the Bucks. So I won that. And then against Jeff, I used that in the force the bet. So Jeff, unfortunately,
plus 400. Yep. I don't know what odds you had at, but that's $43.
$43. Yeah. I mean, that was so easy, right? I mean, obviously Godwin and Evans got hurt, so that made it harder for Brady, but the Saints always beat them up. And the Saints, they didn't have their offensive line actually, which I thought those guys were going to play. And that was kind of big, but their defensive line was there and they just beat the crap out of them. And, Brady he's not going to make a play with his legs. He will throw deep if he has someone to go deep, but when you have no one to go deep, and then Fournette got hurt too, and it was just sort of a war of attrition, and the Saints won it.
By the way, one of the funny comments I just saw here, and they were talking, this is, scrolling back to when we were talking about Arizona, Detroit. Someone said, you were doomed from the beginning because Gus Johnson was the announcer. And you hate overexcited announcers, and there's no one that epitomizes that more than Gus Johnson. So
yeah, it's with Aqib Talib, but Aqib Talib was cracking me up though.
Yeah, he's good. He's good.
He kept it light. I mean, I was getting annoyed at first,
Mm-hmm.
Now, I used to like Nassim Taleb, but he went crazy. So now I like Aqib Talib. Okay. So I switched Nassim to Aqib. But the point is that it was, at first I was getting annoyed by everything. Sasha was watching and she's doing these like tumbles on the couch and stuff. And I was just like, sit still, But then I just was like, let go. I let go. I swear I ate dinner. I ate my full dinner. I couldn't eat dinner during one of the games. The Falcons Jaguars, because I put myself on the line. It was a 2-point game. It was an easy game, but it was a 2-point spread. I couldn't eat dinner until after that. I was just eating my dinner, Indian food, Nepalese food, and just like being like, we're going to come back. Sure. I didn't even drink. I was thinking about drinking, and I was like, first of all,
I wish you would have. I
didn't want to drink because I didn't want to. First of all, I could handle it. Okay. And second of all, I didn't want to wake up with a hangover. And then, that's like the worst thing. I had a friend of mine, good friend of mine. He's a huge Giants fan. In 2000 against the Ravens, he bet $11,000 on the Giants, got blacked out drunk at his own Super Bowl party at halftime when it was like 20-7 or something. Woke up the next day, out $11,000, super hungover. I mean, way too depressing. So I didn't want to do that.
It reminds me, that feeling reminds me of when I used to go out to clubs in New York City and you come out and it's daylight and it's just like everything feels bad. You don't have the adrenaline or any other good feelings from the club. You just have like this miserable sunlight feeling. And that's probably what your friend felt like. Yeah. A couple other things, on your Sirius show on Monday, you have people call in and vent, and you guys have a pretty rigorous standard for what, actually not really. You just want something that's good for the listeners. And most of the stories are bad. I was curious. I'm not going to call in because I'll save room for the listeners, but I had a story, a short, and I'll make it very brief of something that I think qualifies. And you tell me if this would have passed the standard. I did. I had this team that I drafted in one of the best ball sites that it was a monster team, and it was an expensive best ball. It's like $100 best ball, which again, yields like $800-900. And I knew I had this monster. I got everybody because I did it in March. I had like Eckler, Taylor, I had Cooper Kupp. I just never look at it because it's a best ball team. I go back to it now, and it's in last place. And I go, well, what? How is this team in last place? I know I had everybody. I mistakenly went into a managed league. And it wasn't a best ball league. So I had 250 points.
That's
Everyone else had like 200.
Should have called in.
Oh, okay. I mean, yeah, I could still do it.
You can't do it again. You can't.
Yeah, no. But that qualifies, right? Like I'm literally.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's hilarious.
I have 1/10 of the amount of points.
Because you're like all the bye weeks and like all the stuff you just left empty.
I never looked at it. No, because I never set a lineup. I only had Patrick Mahomes in my lineup. I had Pat Mahomes too in a super flex league, and still got all those other guys. And it's literally I had 250 points for the season. Everyone else had like 2,800, and I only had one person.
Because you didn't even like.
Because I left Mahomes in there all season, and the rest of my lineup was blank because it somehow.
You didn't even. It's totally blank.
I will show you this.
And it was like free money. Like you would have won for sure.
There was zero doubt. Okay, listen, in a super flex, I had the first pick I took. Again, I won't go through the whole thing, but I had Mahomes. Right. Later on, I had Hurts. So those were my two guys. I had like Tua later as a third quarterback. Right. Then I had Eckler, Taylor, Cooper Kupp. I had all of the guys. I literally probably would.
Already you won if you made any moves, if you just like even managed it. Yeah.
Yes. And I didn't realize it was a managed league. And so I just left it. I just checked it yesterday. I was like, oh man, at least because I'm losing in some of my fantasy leagues. So I figured at least this is like $1,000 that I get back and not to, I was honestly, that's
generally, see, that would be a great call because that's unusual and nobody does that, right? Like these guys are like, oh man, it sucked. My 4th round pick got me 6 points and I lost by 1 point. I'm like, oh really? Your 4th round pick had a bad week 1 week? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And that's why it's so bad. I'm like, dude, like, come on. That's not a thing. That's not an unusual thing. But this is good. That's a good story.
Yeah. All right. So if you're gonna talk about that segment, you could, kind of hit the highlights of that, and you can use it as an example. Maybe
I'll use it for sure.
Because honestly, that really made me feel ill on a day, where obviously most of your teams fail in the playoffs anyway. So I hope we get 1 or 2 by. All right. Couple last things before we wrap up the Monday podcast. I was watching the San Francisco game. San Francisco. Brandon Ayuk, man, he is a good player. I don't know what happened in the beginning of the year. I mean, doghouse that, but he especially, I mean, do you like him moving forward? Where do you see him next year? Let's say Trey Lance is the quarterback. Is he a receiver that you would recommend targeting next year in the 5th, 6th round?
Oh, absolutely. He looks good to me. Kittle's always hurt. Kittle's great. For some reason they want to run there. And so they never get Kittle, Ayuk, and Debo all together involved. There's always like one guy or, Elijah Mitchell. There's always like 1 or 2 guys do well or just one guy and no one else does well. And that's the problem with them. But I think just talent wise and he'll get the opportunities. I would love to get him 5th, 6th round.
Yeah, I was just looking back to my preseason notes from his rookie year. I do my own comps and things like that. And I had in there that he reminded me a little bit of Odell Beckham in his peak after the catch. Like when he gets it, he just looks sharp. So he's a player I'm marking down. When we start doing some offseason videos, I'm going to start doing a little flag planning for him early to get on that. And then San Francisco running back, Jeff Wilson came out. He went off on my bench yesterday because I didn't trust him. I guess that was stupid because he was getting the carries to himself for the most part. But how do you handicap that when Elijah Mitchell comes back? Do you think
it's Mitchell's job? I think Mitchell's job. I think he's the backup. I think they're happy enough with him. But I think Mitchell's the guy. They really like him. Also, Mitchell has the home run speed. That's what Shanahan likes. They always got even like Jerick McKinnon. He runs like a 4.3 something. Tevin Coleman, who's not even good, but he runs like a 4.37 or something. They had Mostert, who runs like a 4.33. They had Breida originally, who runs like a 4.3 something. He loves these super fast backs, and Mitchell's one of them. And he's, and he runs hard, and he's had big workloads. He just keeps getting hurt is the only problem.
Yeah, and then we actually hit every game except for one. The one game we didn't talk about in detail, and we can just hit on it quickly, is Denver and Cincinnati. I love Cincinnati yesterday getting getting the 3 points. We saw the scary injury to Teddy Bridgewater, and that aside, okay, I'm glad he's okay. But as soon as Drew Lock came in the game, I knew my bet was locked. I mean, no,
that's why it's Drew Lock. When it comes in, the other team's got a lock. Yeah,
I mean, right? It's very rare. Well, actually, that you see the quarterback come in on the other side. You're like, oh, thank God. I mean, he is just awful. I'm just worried about. There was a lot of offseason talk about Denver getting one of the elite quarterbacks. They just need someone to stabilize there. Where are you going to be on the Denver receivers next year? Because Jerry Jeudy got a 0 yesterday, like literally a 0.
Yeah, I mean, they need somebody, and they need a real quarterback. Bridgewater was a big mistake. That was just exactly what you don't do. Bring in somebody with upside. Go for Gardner Minshew. Maybe he's really good. Maybe he'll turn out to be a good quarterback. Develop a new quarterback. Just getting Bridgewater that's exactly what you don't do. Bridgewater, maybe you would bring him in if you already had he's just a backup though. You don't even bring him in under any circumstances. I mean, he could have done the Trent Dilfer thing, if he had the Ravens team that year behind him, but that's about it. I mean, he's not going to, he offers nothing. And so I think Judy's good. I think these CeeDee Lamb, Jerry Jeudy guys who are really super quick, and they only can exist now that you can't push the receivers around. These guys are very low body mass index, right? But they're crazy quick. And so in this sort of environment, they can thrive. But Judy's been a little bit unreliable with the hands. And then they have Sutton, who they signed to a deal. They have Fant, and Patrick seems like a decent player. So it's a really difficult, and they're a defensive running team and cold weather. So I don't know. Jeudy, I think, has, he'll go in the 5th round again, I think, this year, probably. And I think that's fine. I'd probably take Ayuk over him, though.
Jeudy doesn't have a single game over 77 yards. I mean, that's no 100-yard games. It's grim for him. When you talk about quarterbacks that could stabilize, how about someone like Mitch Trubisky? He's a free agent next year. And I know, he's kind of like a running joke, but environment was bad for him. You'll be able to get a player like that, mostly incentive based, for $10 million. Is that someone that you think could be helpful to a team like Denver?
I mean, he may be damaged goods at this point, psychologically. I don't know if he, it's he's like a punchline. Tannehill was almost a punchline before he left Miami. He wasn't as bad as it wasn't as bad as Trubisky, though. I always thought, Mariota would be interesting if he ever got to play again, but he's been injured a lot. You know what? It's better than Mike Glennon. I mean, the Giants, I would rather them have Mitch Trubisky than Mike Glennon. And who knows? I think it's unlikely, and I think that when you've been sort of a scrub for that long, I think sometimes it's hard to dig your way out of it mentally. And maybe he would have been better if he had the mental capacity to overcome that kind of adversity. So I think it's a real long shot, but wouldn't say it's impossible.
All right, everybody. That's going to be it for today for the RotoWire Monday podcast. Come back tomorrow on Tuesday, the Waiver Wire podcast. Listen, that's your favorite. Didn't you try to elbow in and get in on the Waiver Wire podcast?
Yeah, they wouldn't let me have it. I said, I love Waiver Wire. But they were like, no, you can't have it.
Yeah. This would be the Waiver Wire podcast. Sort by last week's stat, hit the top button. I know the podcast over for the year.
Hey, look, people love waivers. This is not my thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what I think is really cool about waivers is that it's not obviously it's finding the top guys. We all know those are. It's speculating, and those are the kind of like the sneaky ads video that I do with Jeffy Tweet, trying to figure out who's next week's waivers, and that's really where the strategy comes in.
Yeah, sure.
All right. So come back tomorrow. I'm Alan Seslowsky sitting in for Jeff Erickson. He's Chris Liss. You can catch him every week or Monday through Thursday on SiriusXM Radio to continue the conversation. All right. Until next week, we'll be back, and have a great holiday, everybody.